The Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show. Brought to you by Sparks Hockey, Dairy Queen, Monkey Sports, Safety Insurance, NEHDAA, and Sports Etc. Now, Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston, and Bob Pierce.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It is the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show. How long have we had that intro? Does that intro predate me? Was this the intro you had, Ryan? Can you remember?
What do you mean?
Like the song.
Oh, the song? No, I think they've changed that.
They've changed it?
Years, yeah.
Okay. I don't know why. I feel like I've heard the song 1,000 times. Anyway, so here we are. Saturday, March 28th. I had to figure out the day real quick. The Boston Bruins are arguably, comfortably in a playoff spot. They remain in control of their own destiny.
It's very arguable.
It's very arguable. That's what we're going to do for 2 hours. But this is now, after last weekend was the most important weekend of the year, we now have a new most important weekend of the year. It is a back-to-back beginning today at the Garden, 5 p.m. against Minnesota. And then tomorrow, the game of all games, the Boston Bruins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think their season may come down to these two games. The two remaining games of Columbus. And here we are.
Well, and this is why I say it's arguable. Number one, you're only in by 2 points right now. Number two, starting with that game in Buffalo on Wednesday night, you have in a 6-game span, 5 of those games against 5 of the top 6 teams in the league record-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You play Buffalo in there. You've got Minnesota today. They're at number 6. You got Columbus, who's red hot right now. You've got Dallas coming in here on Tuesday night. You've got Tampa Bay coming up on this road trip. You got Carolina on that road trip. Like, this is a hell of a gauntlet that this team is going through right now.
It is. And the reason why I say arguable, and the reason why I'm saying they're comfortably in it, they got to hang on. I don't want to let them off the hook. I know the schedule's difficult. They're in it right now. They have the 2-point advantage. They have tiebreakers almost pretty much every team, between the regulation wins and the regulation plus overtime wins. They got to get to the finish line. I said it a week ago, and I'll say it again now. I know it's hard. I know they have tough opponents, but they've been in it for so long now that I really need to and want to see them cross the finish line and punch their ticket. So I know it's hard. Like I look at the schedule, like you just mentioned, you outlined it. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, but I think that this team has earned the trust and the belief for us to say, okay, you've been this team now. It's 72 games in, game 73 and 74 today and tomorrow. You should get in. If you're in it for, how long have they been in a playoff spot now, Ryan? It's probably been, since like January? I think they may have fallen out of it right before the Christmas break, but they got right in it like right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's the run that they've been on, which is now up to like 32 or 33 games where they've lost a total of 5 times in regulation.
Yeah.
Started right before New Year's.
Right.
It started New Year's Eve in Edmonton, but they got a point in the game before that in Calgary. From that point forward, after the, I mentioned it on our broadcast the other night. December 27th, first game out of the Christmas break, they lost in Buffalo. That's the last time they lost back-to-back games in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's one time where they lost back-to-back overtime games, which was right before the Olympic break. I
liked those points. I know,
right.
The Tampa game, yeah, but the Florida game, I like that point.
That was one of those, like, you gave away a point against Tampa. You should have won that game, but you had to come back and you stole a point basically in Florida, so it maybe evened out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like really from from New Year's Eve on. I mean, you've beaten almost everybody who's been in front of you, or at least been able to get a point against almost everybody who's been in front of you. So you're kind of right in the point of, like, yeah, this is a hard schedule, but you've been one of the better teams in the league here for the past 3 months, essentially.
And I would say that you've had arguably 2 of your best wins of the season in the last week alone. The Detroit game, which we'll get to, and the Buffalo game on Wednesday. I thought the game in Buffalo on Wednesday, like, yeah, you You had some slippage, at certain points in the game, but it's Buffalo. They are on the best 40-game segment since the 95-96 Red Wings, which I can't believe we're saying, but we're saying. Like, they have been nails for half a season now, right? But you win those games. I think that Middlestat goal with 6 minutes left in regulation, like, that's a big goal, right? And I think it's a big goal because this team has not been great from playing from behind.
You could have easily let that game get away.
I thought they were gonna. Was it 2 goals in 33 seconds?
2 goals in 33 seconds. You go from down 1 or up 1 to down 1 that quickly. That can make a team go into a spiral. For the rest of that third period, and that game could wind up. You could wind up losing that game 5-2 easily.
I had a feeling that was going to happen when Buffalo takes the lead. I was like, they're going to get 2 more cheapies here, and it's going to be a laugher by the end of it. But no, like they dug in, and that's another reason again why I'm like, you've gotten this far, hard schedule, but you're adapting. You are adapting to the hard schedule. I think you can make the argument the game you lose is the best game to lose. That Toronto game, I'm happy with them losing that game. I'm happy with that. Toronto is really just, they're like, we want to give you the pick. Don't you worry about that. We want to give you that pick. They won the next night too.
I know.
I couldn't believe it. Those 2 wins dropped their percentage of getting a top 5 pick by like 9%.
They are 10th from the bottom right now.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
How are you not
That's exactly what you're hoping for right there.
How are you not calling like Jonas Gustafsson and you're like, hey, the monster, we want to put you back in net? Like, how are you not like engineering a tank like no other right now? And it kind of reminds me, like, I was talking to somebody about this and they were saying, man, it's really hard to tank. And I was like, yeah, you have to like almost try. Remember last year where they lost 10 games in a row, the Bruins did? That's how they got 7th overall. Like, had that not happened, they would have been picking probably 10 or 11. Like, you almost have to find a way to just be straight up doo-doo for like a month and a half. It's a really hard thing to do in this league.
Yeah. No, listen, again, at the time, and we joke about it now, and it still stands. I mean, that's a rough 2 points to lose. It's in the long-term perspective of the franchise. Yeah, it probably helps you, but from your vantage point of trying to make the playoffs, man, you'd really prefer to have those 2 points in the bank right now.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, so if you're going to lose a game,
yeah,
that's the one to lose, right? 617-779-0985. We got a lot to get to today. We got the Bruins, the way they're surging. We got a weekend back-to-back. James Hagens is in Providence, and everyone's mad about it, myself included. We got Lucas Reichel contributing. Lindholm has woken up. There's a lot to get to today, Ryan. It's myself, Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston. We're going to talk to Bob Beers at some point during this show as well. And you guys on the phone line, 617-779-0985. We take a break right to your phone calls here on the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show.
The Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show will continue with Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston.
here with you until 11 a.m. today talking about the Boston Bruins. As Ryan outlined in the opening segment, big stretch for this team. Begins today, Minnesota, Quinn Hughes and the Minnesota Wild. Tomorrow you have Columbus, Dallas on Tuesday. Thursday you have the Florida Panthers. Saturday you have Tampa Bay Lightning. And then on April 5th you have the Flyers, who beat you last time you saw them. So this is a difficult stretch. And then after that Flyers game, you have the Carolina Hurricanes, who are the best team in the Metro. So make or break time, big boy hockey. You need to play like big boys. They play like big boys last week, I would say. The Toronto game excluded. But there's a lot to get to.
Yeah, just kind of reiterating, like that schedule you just mentioned, and you go back to Buffalo on Wednesday. You've got second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth best records in the NHL. And then you can add in Columbus, who's had one of the best records in the NHL since they made the coaching change back in January. I mean, they're a top 10 team in the league points wise, as you are, by the way. You're here in Boston, tied for eighth most points in the NHL coming into today, and they're on the bubble still in the East.
Yeah, and the Wild have been really strong with Quinn Hughes as well, 23, 11, and 7. So they've been able to get points in all but 11 of 41 games with Quinn Hughes. So that's another great team as well. We got a lot to get to, so kicking us off today, I think this guy is a good topic to begin with. So we're going to go with Bob in Londonderry. Bob, what's going on?
Show, and they're right. The Bruins got a tough road ahead of themselves, and there's a lot of weight on this guy Swayman, and you've heard me talk before. I never said he's a bad goalie, but you watch his past history. If you're expecting any miracles to go forth this season, it is not going to happen, and it won't necessarily be his fault. He just is not that type of a goalie. He never has been, and he's never going to be. So, and remember the last few games he's won. Several games he's won. Count the number of posts that were hit. Had those last 12 posts went different, you wouldn't even be talking the way you're talking today. And that happens. That's normal for a lot of guys. I just didn't know if you guys had that same feeling, or say, nope, this guy's you'll be surprised what he's going to do. That's all.
Thank you for the call, Bob. Yeah, I think with Swayman, the reason why you should feel good, or why you should maybe not be as skeptical as you have been in the past, is that the Bruins are playing playoff hockey right now, and Swayman, I think, has been nails. I think he's been really good. And we haven't seen this version of Swayman since the last time the Bruins were playing meaningful hockey, which was the spring of 2024 in the playoffs, when he was, a 933, in the playoffs? And so right now, post-Olympic break, he's 6-3-1 with a 928 and a 1.98 goals against. I can't complain about him right now.
And I tend to fall into it too. Like, the numbers are what they are. Just look at him. Night in, night out. How many big saves he comes up with for this team. Beersy and I do an interview with Marco Stern before every game. And the second half of the season especially, I can't tell you how many times, and I try not to do it every single time I do the interview, but how many times we have to bring up Jeremy Swayman and how good he has played in the game before that, because without him, they don't win those games. The game in Detroit last Saturday is a prime example. All right, that's a hell of a game. It was a lot of fun to be at, great atmosphere and all that. Two teams that are on the playoff bubble going head-to-head on national TV. It was awesome. They don't sniff winning that game without Jeremy Swayman and the way he played throughout that game, and especially in the third period. Yeah, occasionally a puck goes off the post. Guess what? That's not a shot on goal. As goaltenders will remind you. He has been unbelievable. And his numbers for the season are a little inflated from where they probably should be, because there were some games, particularly early on in the year, where he took it on the chin, where the team in front of him was pretty bad. And so, you give up 6 goals to, Ottawa, you give up 6 goals to Dallas. That'll tend to inflate those numbers a little bit. But I mean, he is the reason, more than perhaps anybody else on this team, that they're in the position that they're in right now.
I think of that. I mentioned it last time we talked, but that Seattle game where they were just a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
And Swayman's line ends up being like 7 goals on like 28 shots or 27 shots, and you're like, yeah, that's a rough night. But that was kind of on the team in front of him more than it was on him, right? He's taken some beatings, and yeah, you understand it, but like that is, I feel like right now the only thing that would concern me with Swayman would be the workload. How much are you leaning on him? Like today, for example.
Sure.
Do you give him today? Or do you give him tomorrow because you're playing in conference tomorrow, playoff battle?
Right.
Do you almost sacrifice today? You know, and Korpisalo gave you a good game on Wednesday.
We had this conversation last Saturday.
Yeah.
Where, they've had a lot of back-to-backs here.
And they're not stopping.
Right. Yeah, we got another one coming next weekend as well.
Yeah.
And then another one I think the weekend after that as well. So, I kind of wondered about, was there a possibility that he might end up going back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday? Well, they decided, no, they're going to go with Korpisalo at home on Tuesday night. They went Swayman at home on Tuesday night. They lose that game, and it's like, well, they're going to bring him back on Wednesday night? I thought they might. Mm-hmm. They decided to go with Korpisalo. Korpisalo played well, turned out to be the right move. They end up getting the win there. At some point, in one of these back-to-backs, do they go Swayman for both?
I wonder how much Korpisalo's performance on Wednesday might shift them away from that thinking. Because I feel like if you got a continuation of the Korpisalo that you had seen in the previous 4 starts, then we're entering this weekend going, oh, you're going Swayman.
Right.
But because I thought Korpisalo, box score, he's never going to have a great night, I feel like. But he made some big saves, and he battled, and he competed, I thought, in that Buffalo game to keep them out of trouble. I know he gives up 2 goals in 33 seconds. I'm not going to blame him on the shorthanded goal. I think he hung in there as best you can, when Mason Lowry just gives the puck away and gets outworked. But I wonder if that start on Wednesday for Korpisalo maybe changes that discussion.
Just going back to the caller, saying Jeremy Swayman's never going to be that goal. What goalie are you referring to?
Tim Thomas in 2011, which is a once in a lifetime thing.
That's the thing. How many of those performances do we really see? Jeremy Swayman right now has the 3rd best odds to win the Vezina Trophy this year, and that's with a 2.72 goals against average. I mean, it's not like his numbers. You look at it and go, "Wow!" He's got a 2.2 goals against. Obviously, he's going to get some votes. 3rd best goals against average in the league, or 3rd best odds to win the Vezina in the league right now, behind Sorokin and Vasilevsky.
Right. Sorokin's my 1.
How much better do you need him to be, and how much longer do you need him to be this good before you go, you know what, maybe he is that guy?
The finish line. He's got to carry them to the finish line.
Well,
and that should be, and if he does get you to the finish line, of the regular season, I'm not saying a championship right now. If he plays well enough, like he's played the last month, and he gets you there, everyone's got to go, you know what? I was wrong. But they're not going to. They're not going to, Ryan. They're going to move the goalpost. They're going to go, let's see it in the playoffs. And then he'll win a playoff round. It'll become, let's see it win a championship. People have positioned this perfectly where they're never wrong now. I can say when I'm wrong. Hey, Tanner Jeannot, I was wrong. He's been pretty damn good for them. They refuse to get off this. People are still mad about what happened in 2024, which I don't understand. You should always want guys to get paid if they prove they're worthy of getting paid. But no, that's the thing. If he drags them kicking and screaming to the playoffs, I want the first game 1 hockey show of the playoffs to be, hey, hand up. I was wrong. He's pretty good. I don't want to see, let's see him doing the playoffs. No. Nope. You told me you couldn't do it. Now he's doing it. Let's go to Tom with a thought on James Hagens. Tom, what's going on?
Hi, Ty. If I could read a tweet of yours real quick.
Yeah.
This is from Don Sweeney. Sweeney on what Hagens needs to improve on. It's off-puck details. There are a few players in this league who can outscore some deficiencies, but the details, the space is limited, the stakes are higher. Says he has to be a more complete player and be invested in details. I swear to God, if they keep him down there so he can learn to be a grinder, I'm going to commit harikari in front of the body horse tattoo. They've got 9 guys that can do that. They have a power play that can't get over the blue line without tripping. Please, just bring up the guy who can score. What are we doing here? This might even be on Cam Neely. I don't know. The other thing Sweeney said was, That's up to Marco. No, it's not, dude. You're the GM. You're in charge of personnel. Bring them up. That's all I got. Thanks very much.
Oh, no worries, Tom. Thank you for the call, as always. I do want to get to the James Hagens thing. Now, let's work backwards from that call. I wonder if Marco said to Don, I can't promise he'll be in our lineup every night. And maybe that gave Don Sweeney some pause. That's my only thought on the Marco comment.
Right.
More than
we're
the
trying to
Don
make the
comment.
playoffs, right? You just brought in Reichel. He, had a good showing, particularly in his first game. He's been okay the last couple of games as well. But you look at it and go, like, where does Hagens fit when we don't know what he's going to be yet at the NHL level right away? We can project what he's going to be down the road, but his first 5-10 games in the NHL, do you know he's going to come in and score 4 goals and put up 3-4 assists? No, we have no idea. First game in Providence, by all accounts, looked decent. Didn't score any, didn't put any points on the board, had a few shots, made a few plays, got a chance to get some power play time. It's not the end of the world for a guy to go to the AHL and get a handful of games of experience before you throw him into a playoff race in the NHL. It's really not. Like, people, if they turn him into a grinder, they're not turning him into a grinder. If he's got some defensive deficiencies that they want him to take care of, or if he's not, positioning himself well, if they feel like there are some things he can improve on, and that maybe going to learn the system a little bit before we toss you in with both feet, it's not that bad of an idea. And it has happened, again, famously or not, if people remember it or not, it happened with Charlie McAvoy, right? They didn't just throw him into the deep end of the NHL. Go down, just get a few games under your belt, make sure you're good enough, make sure you're comfortable enough, and then when you are, and we know, okay, this guy can contribute right away, fine, then plug him into the lineup. But, listen, we are all chomping at the bit to see what this guy can do, right? He's a 7th overall pick. He was a guy that people talked about it being the 1st overall pick at one point, right? We know he's got that talent. We know, or we think we know, that he is going to be a long-term part of this team and can be a star for this team. Great. Like, the first handful of games is not going to determine that one way or the other, whether he's in the AHL or the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with Tom in the sense that I would prefer him being up here, watching. I know you were broadcasting the game in Buffalo when he made his debut, so I'm not sure if you caught any of that game. Like, the skating is as advertised, the vision is as advertised. Didn't have a goal or a point. He's going to make his home debut tonight. Providence is, I forget who they're hosting. I'm sorry, but they're playing tonight down in Providence, 7 p.m. It's clear that he was the most talented player on the ice in the AHL, which makes sense. I think he's kind of a tweener right now, right? Like, the reason why you're not playing him is what you're mentioning, the inexperience, right? However, I agree that I would almost rather put James Hagens on my third line than try to squeeze something out of Lucas Reichel, who is, by all accounts, a bust. Is a guy who hasn't played much in this league, and
right.
or hasn't contributed much in this league. So I understand, but I think that if we're looking for a landing spot for a top prospect, it's hard to beat third line wing with Elias Lindholm and Morgan Geekie, two established NHL players. And hey, how about the power play, which has been terrible for a month now? That's my feeling on why I would want to bring him in right now versus beginning him in the minors.
And I think there's a legitimate point. I do. The other thing I would say, and this is somebody, I broadcast for 9 years in the American Hockey League, seen, a ton of those games. There is a noticeable jump, and because I called college games too for a number of years. There is a noticeable jump in talent from your typical college game, even in a good conference like Hockey East, to moving up to playing against men, right? It's the size and the strength and the speed and the skill that you face there. It goes up. Doesn't go up as much as it goes to the NHL, but it goes up. So just, he's not the biggest guy in the world. So how does he handle playing against bigger guys? How does he handle playing against faster guys? Is there a little bit of a transition there? Is he going to be willing to take some hits? Because he's going to have to. Teams are going to know who this kid is. They're going to target him a little bit, particularly if he shows, the level of talent that we would expect. So, again, I'd rather have him experience that there first than here in playoff intensity level games, which is what we are seeing here down the stretch.
No, I agree. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. Like I've been adamant that he should be getting the NHL because I think that you can use his talents, right? And he could bring some value to your roster. But I can't sit here and say that I think this is totally wrong. And I feel the same way about people that say, like, no, he's got to be getting the AHL. I think there's a nice little gray area that we could be all living in right now when it comes to what he could be.
And I fall back on, what, if he goes down there and he is the guy that a lot of people think that he is, he's going to give them no choice but to have him here before the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I don't. My biggest worry would be that if we remember with McAvoy, I think the plan for McAvoy was to stay down there. And then they had all the injuries, and they had to come up.
They had to bring him up in the playoffs.
So that'd be my only thing, where if the plan is to keep him down there all year, and we don't see him till next year, I understand the whole, like, you don't want to burn the first year. I don't care. Because
it's not even necessarily about that, though. Like, Providence has, had a great season down there. There's a potential of a really deep playoff run down there. There's a lot of great experience to be had down there. If he is part of that, like, that could enter into the equation here as well.
No, it's true. It's true. And so we'll see. He's one of many things. We got more calls on him. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, more of your phone calls on the Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show.
Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston, and Bob Beers. This is the Shaw.
5 p.m. puck drop over at TD Garden. Bruins against Quinn Hughes and the Wild. Should be a great game. I feel like these teams always play good games in Boston. The games in Minnesota always suck. Like they're always blowouts. They're terrible. But the games in Boston, I feel like, are typically good games.
Well, I mean, the Bruins play really well at home, and those road games out west. I can tell you from experience. I mean, those trips aren't easy because you go out to Minnesota, you go out to Dallas, you're. It's always like part of like a 4 or 5 game road trip, when you go out west, and so you kind of end up dragging a little bit in the middle of those trips, especially. So you can see why some of those games can get away.
I think that was the only game last year. It was a 1-0 loss. I remember.
Yes,
it is the only game last year that I fell asleep. I fell asleep during the game. I've been pretty good. But I think that one, I had like a morning workout and I got home and I was like, all right, no nap. I'm going to go right to the game. And then it was just so bad. It was so bad. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, Steve and Stoneham today with more thought on Morgan Geeky. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Ty. How you doing?
How's it going?
Take my phone. I'm concerned about Morgan Geeky, particularly on his 5-on-5 play, because I just don't see him having the puck enough. And the guys he's playing with, Lindholm has been better the last couple of games, but he's not the fleetest of foot, and nor is Morgan Geeky. And the Reichel kid, like you mentioned, is still an AHL guy trying to prove himself in the NHL. I don't know why they won't maybe play him, put him back with Pasternak, because no one creates more offense for you or for any of the guys he plays with in Pasternak. I just don't see him getting enough touches or getting up down to 5-on-5. So I'd like to see him go back up the Paster's line and just move the Russian kid back down to play with Lindholm and Reichel. I'm interested to see what you guys think about that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Thank you for the call. I think that might be coming. And I say that only because I think, to Steve's point, you got to get Geeky going again, and Pasternak is sort of the way to get Geeky going. Whereas Husendinov, you know that he's going to bring you the same level of intensity, the same forechecking, all that, any line. I guess my question would be, though, it feels like Pasternak really likes playing with Husendinov. It feels like he's earned his trust, and vice versa.
And Pasta's on a little run here,
right? Right.
I don't think I would break that up. Listen, Geeky, 3 assists against Detroit, kind of came back, coming back to life. Had another assist against Toronto the other night. Didn't stand out a whole lot in the game in Buffalo. But we've started to see him, get his chances again. He had a couple of really good chances against Stolars in that Toronto game. Stolars was excellent. Made a couple, those couple of huge stops. Had a really good one against Pasta on a one-timer. So as long as Geeky is generating his chances, he's one of those guys. The first one that goes in, they're all going to start going in. That's the way it works with him. So it's been a long time, but the other part of it is so much of Geeky's effectiveness comes from that power play, right? Mm-hmm. He's a weapon on that power play. The power play has been really rough. That especially that first unit has been really rough here for a while now. And part of that might be that Geeky's a little quiet, and so the power play isn't as effective. But a lot of it, he's not involved in it yet because they haven't gotten into the zone, right? Until they get in and get set up, he's not part of the group that's bringing the puck up the ice and trying to get it across the blue line.
No, it's true. And I only worry about Geeky, to your point, when he stops shooting.
Right.
When he's looking more past because he doesn't have the confidence in his shot, whatever, that's when I get concerned about Morgan Geeky. I think he's going to snap out of it. I think he's going to be okay, personally. Another thought here, another line that we haven't talked about much today. Jake in the suburbs has a thought on the 4th line. Jake, what's going on?
Yeah, so I just did the eye test on the 4th line since they came back from break, and I was like, they're really not producing. And then I literally just went and looked, and each of them has 1 point in the 15 games since they've been back. They've been together the entire time, and 2 of the points were collected on Crowley's goal against Columbus. And frankly, I don't feel like there's any puck possession there. I remember, obviously, it wasn't the 4th line back then, but when Minton was centering that line, and I don't want him back there, but when he was centering that line, they were just possess. And I feel like the Bruins zone time and possession has been really poor. And the other thing is with those guys, I mean, they're all playing on the penalty kill, and the penalty kill has been kind of in the crapper, so I really would love to see just to jolt those guys. I mean, to throw Asamont and Steves down in for a game with either Catholic in the center or Crowley in the center, send Jeannot to the, to the ninth floor. And, the other thing is I just looked at the numbers in the last 3 games. Jeannot's been playing basically 7.5, 8 minutes a game. So curious your thoughts on what might be able to be done there to get more production there.
Thank you for the call as always, Jake. We got to take a quick break here, but to wrap up his call, I do. Jeannot is clearly battling an injury right now. Like, he's been a game time decision, and I would hit the point where like there's such an identity line for you that it's hard to sit them. But like you got to get some breathers here for I think some of these guys, given the minutes and the mileage that's on their bodies.
It's a legitimate point that the way that they play the game, where it's physical, right? It's like they're trying to get that puck in, forecheck, go to work, run long shifts, like get, really kind of tenderize the opposition. That can wear on you over the course of a season. So, if, as you said, Jeannot battling an injury, I mean, it was the Detroit game, right? Where they announced that he was game time decision. Maybe he does need a quick breather here to get himself healthy. Who knows? Maybe he's feeling a little better after they've had a couple of days off here since Wednesday night. But
we'll see. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk with Bob Beers ahead of today's game, talk about the week that was and the weekend that will be for the Boston Bruins here on the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show.
Stay tuned for more of the Shaws and Star Market
It's the first time all three of us have been in the city at the same time in quite a while. It's been a hot minute, so it's great to hear from you.
I think it's going to be the last time, isn't it?
I believe so. I looked at the schedule. I was like, oh, come on! I'm not talking to myself like I'm in a padded wall here, and it's only this one time. It looks like.
Well, maybe playoffs, right?
That's true.
We're going to count on that.
Well, I'll probably begin on the road, unfortunately. Hopefully. Yeah. Well,
that's true too. Yeah. Let's hope so.
Last time that we spoke, Bob, we were talking about how the Detroit game was the biggest game of the year until the next biggest game of the year, which begins this weekend with another back-to-back. Looking at their wins this past week in Detroit and then in Buffalo on Wednesday. What was the key, in your opinion, to getting two massive road wins against teams you got to beat?
Well, Detroit was goaltending. Swayman was outstanding because you got outplayed in the third period. But look, Detroit's they're a desperate team, right? They're playing with a sense of urgency. They had a big win last night. They're a team that's they've fallen apart at the end of the last couple of years, when they, right on the verge of making the playoffs, and then they fall out. And that's what's kind of happening to them now as they're on the outside looking in. But it's, so they needed that, and they pushed in that game. I thought the Bruins were pretty good early. There were some penalties that maybe gave them some momentum changes. But, Swayman was awesome. He was great in that game. And, Swayman's been locked in. He's been playing really well. And, he's the reason that you won that game in the third period anyhow. And then, the win against Buffalo was a good one. Like Buffalo, I read all Lindy Ruff's comments afterwards. He's like, well, first game back after a long road trip, and we weren't very good.
Worst two periods we've played in months, I think. First two periods were the worst two periods we played in months. So there's different ways to look at it. Great win for the Bruins, and, a loss for the Sabres, and they didn't think that they played very well. And, that's always the case. So two different ways to look at it, but, the Bruins needed that, especially after the Toronto game. That was a tough one to watch. It was just, they had, and I applaud them for owning it. They all said to a man that we didn't have it. And because they weren't very good against Toronto.
When you look at those two games, and it was interesting because after that Toronto game, Marco was asked about how the team has struggled if they're trailing after two periods and they don't have a lot of comeback wins. The very next night, you get that late regulation goal by Middlestat, you win in overtime. What kind of jolt, confidence-wise, can that give to a team?
Well, you were up in the third period, though.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
You gave up the lead in the third, and then you came back. So good on them. That shows to me. That line's been so clutch, for the team here. The Zaka line has been so good for them. And it was good to see Middlestat get on the board against his old team. I think he was playing in his 500th game. Was that accurate?
Yes.
Good on him. That's just a couple good milestones there. And to score against a team that drafted you and traded you, that had to feel good for him. But just from a team standpoint, that goal was huge. And I think it's really important. I'm curious to see what the lineup looks like today, but I think it's really important that, everybody's got everybody's back. Look, Lohrei, he gave up that puck, and then he takes the penalty, so that's a quick two-goal turnaround, and Lohrei looks like the GOAT, right? But the team picks him up, and I think that's important, and that's really important as a team, as a group, that you try to have everybody's back, and I am curious to see what they go with today, lineup wise. There's a couple different ways you can go with younger guys, and I'm still considering Lohrei a younger guy. Do you sit him on the bench, or sit him in the press box, or do you go right back to him and say, look, you're capable of this. You've been playing some good hockey. You've slipped a little lately, but we need you. And I'm going with the latter. I assume he's going to be back in there. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm assuming he's going to be back in there. And we've got your back, but we need you to play better. And, it's up to him to respond.
Well, I thought it was interesting, too, kind of, Marco's reaction after the game as well. It felt, like he kind of defended Lohrei, and talked about, how the strides that he has made throughout the course of this season, where he was obviously last year. There were a lot of struggles. Early part of this season, there were some struggles. He winds up sitting out some games. But, really since then, he's been noticeably better for most of this season.
He has, and they've asked him to play the right side, so that's a little bit of a different look for him. But at the same time, Marco also said that he has slipped lately, right? And he has, but not a lot, and you don't want one thing to define him. I didn't against Toronto. I thought he kind of got handcuffed a little bit. That was a tough play for him, right? The puck gets deflected on its way back. It's bouncing. He tries to keep it in, can't, and all of a sudden, Matthew Nye he's a really good player and he's a strong player, and he was able to kind of bully his way up the ice and get that puck and on the breakaway. But the last game, obviously you got to protect the puck a little bit better against Buffalo. So that it's not one play that defines where you are. It's several games, right? It's not just one thing. And if his play is slipping a little bit, they need to rein him back in. And how do you do that? Yeah, you show him video, and he's receptive to it. He wants to learn. He wants to be better. You talk to him about different plays, that how he can maybe play something differently. But old school, you just sit him down, right? You're in the press box, or you're stapled to the bench in a game. But this is a different time, and you handle players differently. And in order to get the most out of him, how do you handle him? And that's where, kind of, for Marcos and his coaching staff, how do you manage 23 different personalities? How do you get the most out of them? And for Lori, because he's receptive, because he's a good person and wants to learn, you've got to work with him to try to get him back up to his maximum.
Another maybe line they have to manage, perhaps. You're getting solid contributions up and down the lineup, but we had a call earlier talking about Morgan Geekie and trying to get him going 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Do you stick with that line and hope they break through, or are we approaching perhaps maybe putting him back with Pasternak to try to get going again?
Well, they do that anyhow at different times in games, right? For offense's own face-off, maybe after an icing or coming off of a penalty kill, because those guys don't kill penalties. So we see them together once in a while, not on a regular basis, but we do see them together once in a while. How to get Geekie going? That's a good question. I think if they had the answer, they would have already done it. He's been more productive in the assist wise, right? He had a good game against Detroit with 3 assists. Yeah. He's been productive in some of those areas, but goal scoring, you need him to score, right? That's bottom line. Need him to score, and I think he's been snake bit a little bit. I mean, Stolarz stoned him twice against Toronto. He should have had a couple of goals against Toronto on the power play. The power play wasn't good against Toronto, but they did have a couple of good chances, and it was him on the left wing circle there where Stolarz made some good saves. And he's had a few of those. I mean, I go back to that Philadelphia game. What did he have, 2 or 3 chances against Philadelphia? And he was stopped in that game as well. So I think if the door opens, it's the floodgates will open, right, for him, and it's going to start to happen. His work ethic is there. Moving his feet, that's been talked about a little bit. Playing with pace. And what are you doing if you're not scoring? How are you helping the team if you're not scoring? And he's had the assist, so now it's a matter of getting him back on the score sheet in terms of goal scoring, which he's perfectly capable of. And do you play? So your question was, do you stick him? You leave him on that line? There might be a change on that line today. I get the sense that there will be a change on that line today. We don't know. It's a 5:00 game, so there's no morning escape. But my guess is they might bring somebody else into the lineup there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I just feel like they, for as good as they've been, right? The second line's been great. Pasternak's getting going here. There's just it feels like there's always this game of like kind of putting out fires, right, left and right. Like one line's not going, you got to make a tweak there, but they're still they're productive right now, and so they have options. It's just I think you have some guys, Bob, and you can speak to this for sure. Like they have some guys that you know that you can move them up or down, and you're going to get the same effort, right, and the same sort of mindset,
the effort's
mentality.
there.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? For Marco, and it allows him to kind of really be flexible with his lineup, and it's just about finding that perfect mix right now.
Yeah, there's areas that they need to clean up. Obviously the power play is just an area that they need to clean up. It's been the effort is there. It's not about effort. It's not about will. It's not about the physicality. They're there. That part of the game. Now it's about execution in certain areas, and the power play is certainly one of them. Korpisalo's performance the other day against Buffalo was encouraging. So you assume that they're going to split the weekend. Right, who plays today? Who plays tomorrow against Columbus? Same time, right? I think it's 5:00 tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So you've got back-to-back games, so both goaltenders probably. They have healthy bodies sitting and hoping to play, and that's why I expect a little bit of a different lineup here today. Not a lot, but maybe a couple tweaks here and there, and maybe a couple tweaks to the lines. So I'm curious which way they go.
We got a lot more to get to with their schedule and how they approach it coming up here. Let's get a quick check of the headlines and then some phone calls with myself, Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston, and Bob Beers on the expert hotline here on the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show.
From the Town Fair Times and News, Dutcher and Hardy, Owen Beetle, Felger and Maz, the Bruins, the Celtics, the Pats, the Revolution. This is
So they're going to practice probably, I would imagine, April 1st. And then then I don't know when they would practice after that, because it gets wild here.
Yeah, it's been like this all year, right? I mean, you got some afternoon games, right? So no morning skates. There's really no. I mean, they've talked about that all year. There hasn't been much practice time. Fraser Minton, by the way, you just had him on the soundbite. Mm-hmm. How about when Toronto was in town? And I mean, they are panicking in Toronto right now, and I hated to see Brandon Carlo go because, I liked him as a player. I liked him as a person, one of the good people. But that trade is looking better and better every day. So we just need Toronto to finish. I'm just wondering how the ping pong balls are going to fall, for the draft lottery. So just
I'm terrified of you speaking this into existence right now.
I'm telling you, they have a way of falling Toronto's way. I'm telling you. We'll see, but no, the schedule is, and it's not just the amount of games in a short amount of time. It's who you're playing, right? You've got one of the iron coming in here today. I know that they're around 500 the last 10 games or so for Minnesota, so they haven't been hitting on all cylinders, but they're still one of the best teams in the league. You've got that game today. You've got, Columbus, who has just been on fire, and that's tomorrow. Then you've got Dallas on Tuesday. Tampa are coming up, later, whatever it is, Saturday or whatever. So it's not getting any easier, and it's not getting any lighter. It's coming, and they're difficult games. And it doesn't matter who you're playing this time of year. I mean, they just lost to Toronto. Mm-hmm. So, it doesn't matter who you're playing. I know strength of schedule, and people talk about that and whatever. Some teams are just looking to play out the strings. Some teams are, they're already in the playoffs, and they're just kind of fine-tuning their game. That's kind of how I look at Minnesota and Dallas right now. But there's other teams that, like Toronto, just won 2 in a row because they're just kind of playing loose, and it's carefree. It's easy to play at this time of year for those teams that are out of the playoffs. There's no way to kind of calculate it. You've got to play a certain way to win games if you're the Bruins. And you can't deviate from that no matter who you're playing against.
You mentioned Korpisalo before our last break there. Does his performance on Wednesday maybe change the dynamic or discussion a little bit when it comes to trusting him and giving him starts here? Because I feel like if you got another poor start out of him on Wednesday, we'd be talking right now about, do you go with Swayman for both today and tomorrow? Does what he did on Wednesday kind of change that discussion?
Well, yeah. If it was a poor start, you might be talking about making a call up. But you've got, Swayman's your guy. There's no questioning that, and he's earned that. He's been terrific this year. There's been a couple games here and there where the team in front of him and him too, they didn't have it, and I think that's why his numbers aren't fantastic. You know what I mean? If you just look at the numbers, but the eye test tells you he gives you a chance to win. And more than that, he's been outstanding. He's been locked in here the last several weeks. So I think Korpisalo's performance the other day was very encouraging. He was playing some good hockey. What was he, 5-0-2, and then he had a couple of bad outings, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like he's out of the picture. He's a good goaltender. He can play. There's a few rebounds that he needs to clean up and whatever, but, he's very capable. And he was good the other day against Buffalo. So, you've got to use both. It's just, how many, there's 2 or 3 back-to-backs.
Yeah, so I'm looking at, so you got a back-to-back today, tomorrow.
Yeah.
You got a back-to-back next Saturday and Sunday at Tampa and Philly.
Tampa.
So
that's a tough one, by the way. Did you see the times of those games?
Yeah.
The Tampa games at
so 5 o'clock
games at 3:30 on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After a 5 o'clock game in Tampa.
Yeah, and then you got a back-to-back the last weekend with a home game against Tampa, and then at Columbus, which depending on where you are in the standings, that might have to be Swayman for both. I'm just I was starting to add up. Corpy's probably got 2, maybe 3 starts, depending on where they are in the standings left.
Well, yeah, exactly, depending on the standings. There's a lot that can happen in these 10 games. Everything changes every day, right? You like today's a big day. There's a ton of games today. There's a lot of teams that, are right around you in the playoff standings and things. You lose a couple games in a row, you're out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's how tight it is right now for them, and how every game just means so much.
If you were making the lineup today, do you go Swayman today or Swayman tomorrow? Given
That's a good question.
The Columbus, the importance of a Columbus game, I would say.
And so I posed that question, or we talked about it, last week, before the Toronto Buffalo back-to-back. Do you play Swayman against, Toronto at home, hoping that that's going to be a guaranteed 2 points, and it wasn't. And then you play Korpisalo against Buffalo, a team that you expected to maybe not come out on top against, and you get 2 points. So I mean, it's kind of crazy right now the way that you can plan and you can figure it all out, but it doesn't guarantee anything. So certainly expect Swayman today, and then tomorrow's we'll figure that one out tomorrow, I guess. Depending on how today goes.
We're in TBD season. Everything is TBD and TBA and
everything. I expect changes in the lineup too, Ty. I mean, I really do. Even though they won last game against Buffalo, like a couple of tweaks. You've got some guys sitting out that might be itching to get back in, and see how they respond to being a healthy scratch here for a few games, and get them back in there and maybe see how they respond.
Yeah, one of those guys that's been scratched a lot lately has been Alex Steeves. He signs the extension, and it feels like he's barely played since signing the extension. Sweeney was asked about him ahead of Tuesday's game, and kind of said, he's going to get his chance. He's going to work his way back in. We're not worried. For a guy like Steeves, and maybe even Asamont to a degree, what do they have to do, to be more impactful and get themselves maybe back ahead of a guy like Lucas Reichel on the depth chart? Proverbial depth chart, I should say.
They're giving Reichel a little bit of a look. Mm-hmm. That's you brought him in. He impressed in Providence. He impressed in his first game. He's got holes in his game. He can add speed. Has he done enough to stay in the lineup the last few games? We'll see. We'll see. And but does Steeves or Asamont give you something that he doesn't? Yeah, they're different kinds of players, but. When I say there might be some tweaks to the lineup, that's kind of where I'm looking right now. Yeah. At least at that. And then, Tanner Jeannot I love everything he gives, and I love the fact that he wants to play. But if he's hurt, there might be a time to give him a couple days off. So that's something that they might look at as well.
Yeah, with a guy like Jeannot, and even maybe Kaselic.
I love everything he gives. I do. And you love his toughness. You love his willingness to do whatever it takes. But if he's banged up to the point where he's a game time decision, it might be time to give him a weekend off.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't want to hear that. He wants to play, and I love him for that. That's great. You want a player like that as opposed to a guy that doesn't want to play if he's not 100%. So, but sometimes you have to dial it back a little bit, and so that's a possibility as well. We don't know what the extent of the injury is, but he was a game time decision the other day, and didn't practice or practice in a red jersey. So, there's something there.
Well, and we had a caller pointed out too, like his ice time the last few games is way down. I mean, he's 7-8 minutes a night, which is not normal for him.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about today, though, is Minnesota's a tougher team. They want to bully you. That's right up the Bruins' alley, I think. So, they got the Foligno brothers together. I don't know if Mark is playing, but they got Nick playing there, and got some tougher guys on that team, and McCarron and who they added from Nashville. They bulked up. For the playoff run. So this will be an interesting game today. And their general manager is Billy Guerin. I mean, he loves that type of hockey. So this will be an interesting game today against a good team.
Yeah, the Wild really do have some heft on this roster between McCarron. You mentioned Foligno, both Folignos, Yakov Trenin, back end Jake Middleton. They got some big dudes on this team.
And Bogosian, and Eriksson Ek plays a big boy game. I mean, this will be a good game. This will be a good test.
Yeah, I mean, hey, this beats last year when we were talking about the ping pong balls. Now we're talking ping pong ball conspiracy.
We're still talking about it.
I will say this, Bob, is that Toronto's little heater they're on right now, the winning again in Boston, the winning the next night, and allegedly, I'm going to say this to you now because you know the conspiracy here, dropped their point percentage of getting a top 5 pick by like 9%. So we'll see.
Well, that's good to know.
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see between
I'll
now
take
and
your
then.
word for that. I don't know how it all works, but I'm just saying, keep an eye on them.
You got me terrified. Now I was like looking forward to the draft lottery. Now I'm like afraid of it. I'm like, I don't know, man. It's gonna be a thing.
Look at how it's all fallen here the last few years.
Bob, before we let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts on James Hagens beginning his pro career in Providence versus the NHL. Sweeney's talked about the off-puck details. In your opinion, what's the biggest thing that means for a player going from amateur to pro? Like off-puck details, what does that mean to you?
Well, how often do you have the puck on your stick in a game?
Depends on what kind of player you are.
Depends on the player. I understand, but if you put a stopwatch on how often you have the puck on your stick in a game, it's not much. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing when you don't have the puck? That's what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. It's if you play 15 to 18 minutes. Let's say you play 20 minutes. How often is the puck on your stick? It's not much.
Right.
It's less than a minute. So what are you doing when you don't have the puck? That's part. I mean, in a real simplistic type of way, that's what he's saying. So, look, I don't profess to know James Hagens' game. I haven't seen him play live, so I don't want to comment on that part of it. But it's good for him to play some games in the American Hockey League, and if he's ready to come in and play meaningful games in a really difficult time of the season, they'll bring him up. They'll sign him to that contract. He's not going anywhere. You know, he's going to be here at some point. Is now the right time for him, or is it in the playoffs, or is it next year? He's going to be here, and if he's ready to make an impact in games that it's big boy hockey now. I mean, it's right. It's you're talking. These games. Every game has such a meaning to it. You can't afford to lose a couple of games. Is he better than some of the guys in our lineup right now? Probably, but is he ready? And I think that's big for not only the team but for him. And to bring him in now, if he's not quite ready, that's unfair to him. You need to have his best interests and the team's best interests kind of moving forward. I think that they have a real plan in place, and I think it's a good plan, and they have to be sure that it's the right time for him to come up. We all want to see him. We all want to see him play in the NHL. He's going to. It's just a matter of when the right time is.
Yeah, I was saying to Ryan earlier, his debut coincided with the Buffalo game. Got to watch it on my laptop while I was watching the Bruins Sabres game. You can see the skating, right? You can see the vision, and you can see the talent, right? He felt like he was the best player on the ice. It's just, can you utilize him the right way, right? And that's going to be the question between now and then. I got to admit, that third line opening right now is tantalizing for me with James Hagens.
Yeah, it is. To my understanding, and I'm not sure if I'm 100% on this, but my understanding is if he comes up and play, he can't go down to Providence and play in the playoffs.
Yeah, he'd be ineligible, yeah.
If you come up here and you play a few games and, worst case scenario, you don't make the playoffs, or worst case, or another worst case scenario, you get knocked out in the first round. They have a chance to go deep in the playoffs in the American Hockey League. And for a guy that spent, a lot of time down there, it's invaluable, the experience. And, you're playing meaningful games. You're playing against, there's younger players down there. I get that, but you're playing against men, and it gives you an opportunity to really get your feet wet and be ready for next season. So if he comes up here and plays, he can't experience that. So there's a couple different ways to look at it right now. And I understand that, yeah, you'd love to see him on that line and maybe on the power play, which is really struggling, and he might be able to help that out. But look, it's one game he played on Wednesday, and he was on high adrenaline. I can guarantee you that. Let's see how he plays the next couple of games, and if it's still there and he's dominant, they're going to bring him up. So that, you gotta. There's a bunch of different ways to look at it, and like I said, what's the best thing for him? What's the best thing for your organization? And that's on everybody's mind right now. The fact that he signed a tryout contract, that tells you a lot. And there's a contract waiting for him. It's just a matter of, okay, is he coming up to Boston, or is he going to stay there?
Yeah, and I think it's big to get the agreement on the tryout, yes, right? Because a lot of these guys, like we've
and
seen
for him to do that, for him to accept that, like the people that I talked to the other day, that says they're on the same page,
right?
Hagens and the Bruins,
which is the most
and that's
important
a good sign.
thing. Most important thing, absolutely. Well, Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Look forward to hearing on the call of today's game. 4:30 pregame here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Bruins and Wild should be an absolute. It should be a great game. I said it to Ryan.
It's a good weekend.
Yeah,
not
good
just
weekend.
Today, but
got to get some
tomorrow.
points.
There'll be good games.
Got to get some points, and hopefully they do this weekend. And again, look forward to hearing from you on today's call and next week, as well as the Bruins continue this absolute gauntlet of a schedule they have between now and Game 82.
All right, guys. See you later.
That was Bob Beers joining us on the Expert Hotline. We're going to take a quick break here. We come back right to your phone calls. Thank you guys so much for being patient. Jay, Mikey, see you on the line. We're going to get to you right here on the other side here on the Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show.
The Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show will continue with Ty.
of the week, brought to you by your local New England Honda dealers. Test drive the all-new Civic Hybrid or our full line of hybrid and electric vehicles today. Pavel Zacha, you extending him on July 1? Giving him an extension?
Yeah, he is. I think you have to.
He's been so good.
He's had such a great year. He really has. I mean, he's career high in goals. He's probably going to hit a career high in points.
He's 5 away from matching it with 10 games to go.
He's just been so good, particularly here down the stretch. I mean, that line as a whole. I mean, I'll give you one better. I mean, what do you do with Victor Arvidsson? 20 goal scorer. Sturm loves him. Loves him some Victor Arvidsson, and rightfully so. I mean, he's been
I love chocolate
excellent
cake.
for this
I should
team.
eat it every day, though.
I'm not saying, you're looking to give him a 4 or 5 year extension, but would you like to keep him around another year?
I'm doing it if it's a 1-year deal. If he wants to go one year at a time, sure. I imagine he won't, because the market is so bad for talent, basically, that I don't. You're getting him at a healthy year. He's not always healthy. That's my concern. The way he plays, he should get hurt on every shift. He's always just getting rocked.
That game he was awesome in Buffalo.
Oh, he was fantastic. Yeah, no, like that.
For a guy his size, his size that plays as physically as he does. You're right. I mean, talk about, you kind of think he would be getting hurt on a regular basis. Like he was out there. He uses his quickness, but he also isn't afraid to mix things up. The game tying goal the other night, like he makes a play just to get that puck in the zone. Takes a heavy hit to do it, but he makes the play to get that puck in the zone. Bang, bang, bang. Aspro shot. Ricochets back out in front. Tie game. He doesn't get a point on that, but he started that whole sequence.
Yeah, I like what he's done. I feel like he's going to get a 3-year deal, and I don't want to do that. Like that'd be my. I like what he does. I like what he's done. I don't love that part of it. Jay, thank you so much for being so patient. Jay, what's on your mind today? Jay. Ryan, you want to put him on? Oh,
How are you guys doing?
Oh, hey, how's it going, Jay? Sorry about that. What's going on?
No, that was my fault. I just wanted to call and say I'm actually glad that the Bruins have the toughest schedule remaining, because they seem to play to the level of their competition. We've played teams lower than us and have stooped down to their level and lost bad games, like Toronto, for example. Mm-hmm. And then we've played some of the top teams in the league and have won those games. So I'm glad they have all these tough games down the stretch, because I do think they'll make the playoffs, and I do think they'll be better for it. Also, I think Corpy should start for Columbus, because isn't that the team that drafted him and he played there for a while?
Yes.
So I think players get up for their former teams, and Sturm knows that.
No, it's a great thought, and thank you, Jay, for the call, and thank you so much for being so patient.
Corpy would get to lead the stretch for that one.
Right.
That's like their thing. It's like Murat Husnudinov got to lead the stretch yesterday at the end of practice, because he's Minnesota Wild guy, or former Minnesota Wild guy.
Steve Spott did it against Dallas, which was hilarious. I think
they had Jay Leach do it in Seattle too. I think
Chris Kelly could do it for Anaheim or Ottawa or wherever. No, but I think it's a good point that Jay brought up. Is I think iron sharpens the iron, and so if you're playing playoff caliber teams while trying to make the playoffs, I kind of love that. I think it's good for you. I think it matters.
There's something to be said too. And listen, we're still 10 games before we get there. Hopefully we get there. There's something to be said for teams that have had to battle tooth and nail just to get to the playoffs, and what that does with the momentum that you can carry over into the first round of the playoffs. Those teams tend to be a little dangerous because they've been playing playoff hockey for the last month or two before they get there.
Florida in 2023. I would say Columbus in 2019 when they upended Tampa.
If you're in the East right now, do you want to play the Columbus Blue Jackets in the first round of the playoffs?
No, thank you.
They've been unbelievable here for the last 2 months.
You know who I want to play if I'm the Boston Bruins? Developing opinion. I want to play Carolina. I think you could beat up on Carolina's defense this year. That is not a stable defense back there. That left side, the left side right now? Jacob Slavin, who is great, but is looking a little older now. Keandre Miller and Mike Riley. Oh my goodness. Your forecheck could beat the bag out of that line in a 7-game series. And they have Brandon Bussey in net, who you know more about Brandon Bussey than anybody else besides the Carolina Hurricanes right now. You know every little hole in that armor. And I don't think Bussey's been as good as people say. You look under the hood, he's been okay. He's a product of that system. That's a good system down in Carolina.
They don't scare me because of their D. They scare me because of just their general approach and the way that that's a really tough team to play against.
Oh, they're cycle demons.
We're going to see them coming up on the long road trip here to start off April. But they're so relentless that over the course of a playoff series, that's a lot to deal with.
Counterpoint: they have a 5'8" man as their second line center right now. Logan Stankoven. That is their second line center. And you're like, Stinky oven? Anyway, Mikey in Fall River. Mikey, what's up?
Good morning, fellas. I just want to, you guys already touched on the James Hagens thing, but I want to actually change my question. Obviously, he came from college and he's going to the AHL, so college and AHL are two different things, and AHL and Bruins are two different things. And now you're going to add playoff hockey. Playoff hockey and regular hockey is two different environments. To put that on a teenager is going to be very tough.
Mike, it's a great point. Thank you for the call. That was part of my reasoning and my rationale for wanting him to come up now, because if you do need him in the playoffs, let's say you play Carolina or whoever, through 4 games or 3 games, you're down 2-1 or you're tied 2-2, but your power play has been 1 for 16, right? Let's just say. And you want to bring him up. Well, now he's got to go up 2 levels, right? Whereas if he comes up now, it's playoff style hockey.
Right. You want to have him have a few NHL games under his belt before he gets thrust into the playoffs. I get that. Not
everyone can be Charlie McAvoy, right? And Charlie McAvoy, I go back to that 2017 series, not with McAvoy, but with Pasternak. Pasternak had his first 30-goal year that season, and he gets to the playoffs and goes, different kind of game here. This is hard. It's much harder to score goals up here. And he was better for it. He was better off for it. I'm very pro getting Hagen some experience now, because I just think it matters. I do. I think you got to lose before you win. You got to know what it's like. You're not going to, like, if he's held out of the playoffs and losing the first round in 7 games, whatever, it's a hard fought series, but they lose. And then we're doing this next year, and he's overwhelmed by the playoffs. It's kind of like, well, we could have got ahead of this a little bit, and it wouldn't have completely derailed the franchise if we got ahead of it, So that's another reason why I'm kind of about that. But not our call. John in Plymouth. John, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. 2 things real quick, positive and negative. Positive is, as a hockey fan, you can't ask for anything more right now. I know this team's been a little up and down and frustrating, but the fact 10 games left, it's basically the playoffs now. So that's a real positive. Negative, again, Mason Lohrei, when is enough enough? Is this an experiment? This isn't, we got 10 games left. This is it. It's time to put up or shut up. And if they take him out, which they should, by the way, because I've had clearly enough, and I'm sure many people agree, who would swap in for him, and what are some differences in their play? Thank you.
Absolutely, John. Thank you for the call.
Therein lies the question.
Exactly.
If you're going to sit Mason Lohrei, and he's been playing on the right side now, well, you've been flopping in Peak or Yoki Haru as your third right side guy.
How did Yoki Haru get a 3-year contract? How did that happen? How did he get that contract, Yoki Haru? Sorry.
So coming out of the Olympics, right? They start with Yoki Haru in that spot on the right side. Doesn't carry the momentum from the bronze medal into back into things here. So Pete comes back in. They've tried it a couple more times. They sub Yoki Haru in for a game or 2, and it's not there. Pete comes back in. So right side depth,
it's not really there.
It's not really there.
Jordan Harris has played once in the last 5 months.
So if you're going to take Lohrei out, right? You got to you're putting Harris back in, who has barely played this year because of the injury and now just hasn't cracked the lineup, or you're elevating Peak up to a second pairing guy and putting Harris third pair, or you're putting Yoki Haru third pair. Well, we've kind of discussed this many times over the year. Peak is much better as your third pairing guy than he is as your second pairing guy. Mason has been honestly, he's been so much better defensively this year, and they've kind of found a niche for him there with Hampus Lindholm, where he can be a second pairing guy. Hampus can hopefully cover up a few of the warts defensively if there are any. But Lohrei, playing on that right side has actually been pretty solid most nights. Now, yeah, we talked about the back-to-back game issues earlier this week, right? Where he gets beat by Nyes. Beersy addressed that the other, and said, that's Nyes, strong player making a strong play there. The one against Buffalo, little less excusable, perhaps.
Yeah.
I thought it was telling that, they gave Lohrei maybe the next 5 or 6 minutes off. He didn't play, didn't come out back to play right away, but, he was back in there before the end of that one. So they didn't just staple him to the bench and say no. I think unless things really take a dramatic turn, I think you keep putting him back out there.
Yeah, I think you're committed to it at this point.
Has there been a point in this season where you've looked at the roster and gone, okay, they're fine on the right side? Like, they've been able to make it work with this system up until now, and I think, the Mason Lohrei stuff was very egregious in the Buffalo game, but objectively, every button that the staff has pushed to kind of put this group together. Also, I'm not trying to move Nikita Zadorov up and give him more minutes at this point either, but that's just a me thing. They've been able to make it work with this group, and they've been able to make it work with very limited depth on the right side.
They figured out once they got Aspero here, and he fit, that helped kind of slide people back into place. Because early in the year, when they had McAvoy and Lohrei together, that wasn't working at all for either one of them.
Right.
Lohrei was struggling. McAvoy, I felt like, was trying to make up for some of Lohrai's mistakes, taking himself out of position. That wasn't right.
McAvoy's not a babysitter. I feel like we know that about him.
Right.
To this point, he's not there yet. Chara was the babysitter, but he can't be.
Once they got him together with Aspero, and Aspero can kind of be the responsible guy defensively, that's really opened the door for McAvoy to be more aggressive at the offensive end. And, he's 50-plus points now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the reason why they were linked to Mackenzie Weegar and Justin Falk and Rasmus Anderson. This is why.
Ristolainen and
Rundown. Yeah. They wanted the right shot. And this is the trade-off. Bob said it, you trade Brandon Carlo. We do that trade 10 times out of 10 if we're asked to do it again. I think we all agree. But it is the problem that it does open up for you because Brandon Carlo was a stable right shot D. You didn't really worry about Brandon Carlo, right? He would have some ugly nights, but you weren't like, oh, this guy's unplayable. It was more like, he's not what I want him to be, but he's not horrible, right? There are some nights where some guys on that right side are downright horrible. And you're like, what do you do? It's one of the sneaky hardest positions in sports to fill, right shot D. That's why I want them. That's why I want that Toronto pick, because there's a bunch of right shot D that could be there for them.
It's why at the trade deadline, they always demand big prices for those guys. It's why at free agency, you always look at some of the signings and go, they're giving this guy how much?
Right.
They're like left tackles in football.
If
you get a good one, you don't want to let him go.
No, it's true. It's true. And I mean, I said it half kidding. How did Yoki Haru get that contract? I mean, the right shot D on a market that had no right shot D. It was Ekblad, Pionk, both of whom re-signed with their cities. Fabro, who re-signed in Columbus as well. There was nobody available. It was either this or Brent Burns, or who wasn't going to come here. He wants to chase a cup. He wasn't going to come here. And is that going to fit you better than Mason Lohrei? I really don't know. Anyways, 617-779-0985. We're going to take a quick break here, and then when we come back, more of your phone calls on the Shaw's and Star Market Hockey Show.
Ty Anderson, Ryan Johnston, and Bob Beers. This is The Show.
they have encountered here. You know, you got a big game against the Red Wings. Swayman shows up, makes 41 saves. You win that game. Now, they falter against Toronto, but they come out the next night against a better team and win that game, and I think that was a gutsy win. Then now you have a weekend back-to-back here where I think you're going to need gutsy performances. We had a call earlier, Jay, who mentioned maybe you go to Korpisalo on Saturday, given that it's his former team. I wonder if they go Swayman back-to-back here. I really do. I feel like if you're going to do it, now is the time. Swayman has not played since Tuesday. You as a team have played one game since Wednesday. It was on Wednesday. So you've had 2 days off in a row now. Swayman is clearly putting this team on his back right now, and he's delivering. Now you run the risk, though, if you do go Swayman back-to-back, what if he gets lit up on Sunday? And is now the confidence rattled, and are you now back at square one where you're like, oh, did we interrupt the flow? Did we interrupt the rhythm? Are we now trying to get two goalies going instead of trying to get one goalie going? I would, and one bad game shouldn't undo everything Swayman has done, but this is where, to Bob's point and to Ryan's point, like, points are at such a premium right now that, like, one wrong move, if it leads to a 3-game slide, that's no good. You can't afford that.
No offense to any parties involved. I have basically zero interest in trying to get two goalies going right now. I care about one goalie right now, and his name is Jeremy Swayman, who's having a really remarkable month of March. He's outside of, we were just talking during the break, outside of Scott Wedgwood, he's been the best goalie. He's under 2 goals allowed per game. He's stopped, good Lord, 245 saves on 263 shot attempts this month across 9 games. He has looked really, really good. He has looked like that guy that, frankly, a lot of people, including myself at the beginning of the season, wasn't quite sure he could be. I never believed he was as bad as he was last year, but I was still skeptical to see if he would live up to the money he signed for. And I think that as of right now, it's looking pretty founded. However, like I was just saying, I'm not interested in getting Korpisalo going. These 2 games are going to be so crucial in the big picture of what this team inevitably does down the stretch. I would love to see Jeremy Swayman back-to-back. I would love to see him perform well in back-to-back games, but especially when you've got Minnesota tomorrow and then Columbus for the seedings. I think Minnesota is one of the best teams in hockey and has been all year long. So I think this is the time, if I'm the Boston Bruins, I'm going, okay, Sway, you know, this is what we believed you could be. This is why we've decided to hitch our wagon to you long term, because we think like these are the games that you're going to get up for. There's not going to be a better time than right now to see, hey, you're hot, you're in your feels, everything's going really well. Let's put you out there and see what you can do in 2 games where it's no secret. These guys are talking about it. Marco Sturm was talking about it. We're playing to the level of our competition, and this kind of hockey is really fun right now because they've basically been playing meaningful hockey this entire month. This is the time to push Jeremy Swayman onto the ice and go, all right, net's yours. Let's see what happens, and we'll see where we are on Monday after this weekend passes.
To be clear, I'm not saying get both goalies going, but I'm saying like if he starts to slide, now you have 2 goalies that you don't necessarily trust the way that you did. Like I'm not saying like you got to get Korpisalo going. I'm just saying like if you lean on Swayman 2 games in a row and that undoes that, you know, that it makes him go backwards here for whatever reason. Now you have less confidence than you would say like if you kept him in the current rhythm, the current pace or whatever. So I just see both sides of it. I mean, I think what happens today might determine what you do tomorrow. I feel like they're in that kind of mode right now. If you have a great game from Swayman and you keep it clean, right? Like I'm talking under 10 high danger chances or whatever, right? And it's not a physically taxing game, because I think that's been a problem here too. They've leaned on Swayman so hard that he's had to stand on his head every game, which I don't love for him. Like I if you can't play him back to back if he's facing 35 shots and 12 of them are high danger looks. That's just too taxing, right? And so if they have a clean game today where they hold Minnesota to, say, 27 shots, and Swayman only has to make, call it 5 big-time stops, 5 big saves, whatever it is, and they're clean and they stay out of the box, then maybe you can go to him on Sunday. But if it's another... Even the game against Toronto was 36 shots, I think, allowed. The game on Saturday was 43 shots allowed. You got to get that under 30. I think if we're talking about what you're talking about, which is going to Swayman back-to-back, you got to have a clinical defensive performance, which we really haven't seen from this team, right? And I think it'd be a fool's errand to try. I think it's going to happen now.
No, and it's kind of what I was saying in the previous segment, because I personally screened a ton of you have to bench Mason Lohrei calls, and we eventually did get to one. But the bigger point is what the buttons, switches, and levers that have been thrown by this team have worked more often than they haven't. So this is really the stretch, and I feel like we're doing this every single, which is, by the way, a great problem to have. Every week we're previewing the upcoming slate and going, these are significant, meaningful games for the Boston Bruins. I think that is a great problem to have. But, like, flat out, they're not going to be the most talented team on ice every single night, but they compete more often than they don't. And as you're saying, Ty, I think playing a clean game right now from them is so critical and so important, because maybe they're in a better place record-wise if they weren't. I think last I checked, they were like way far ahead of everybody else as far as penalty minutes, and maybe that's dropped off a little bit, but that was a big problem for huge portions of the season, was playing shorthanded. And through osmosis, you are now putting more stress on your goaltender as you're constantly in a 5-on-4 set. So all that being said, this is the opportunity where we're going to find out, like, all right, Mason Lohrei, you've had a tough go of it, guy. Are you going to bounce back? Do we need to move more pieces around? Do we need to try something else? Do we need to plug in Henry Jokiharju? Do we need to start making adjustments? It's funny. We were all over Elias Lindholm last week, and he finally comes out of the coma that he's been in and scores 2 goals in his last 3 games. I think Morgan Geekie also had a goal in one of those games as well. This would be a great time where they could find like the rhythm of who they're going to be going into the playoffs. And yes, I know they have not officially locked up a spot yet. And every week where we come in and we're looking at the standings, nothing's really changed as far as them going because of how competitive this side of the NHL has been. But these next 10 games are going to be a lot of fun. It feels like we're really in playoff hockey, but I think it's a great opportunity for the Bruins coaching staff to go, okay, this is it. We can't tinker anymore. This is the system. This is our style. This is our play, and it has got us here. Whether that's a wild card team or they managed to catch one of those top 3 spots in the Atlantic, this ultimately is how we got here. Let's refine it. Let's perfect it and see what happens in the first round.
Yeah, to your point, when they take more than 4 or 5 penalties in a game, their win percentage drops dramatically. They have survived of late, taking 4 penalties a game, but when they came out of the break, they were taking 1, they were taking 2, they were taking 3, they were taking 2. Like, that was allowing them to win games. Wrapping things up today on the show, we have Richie in Ashland. What's going on, Richie?
Hey, Ty. Question for you. With Hagens moving to the wing, it seems like, at BC and now in Providence, does that leave center potentially open for Poitras to be next man up? And do we think we see him down the stretch here at all? He's got a point per game. It's a 3-game stint.
Yeah, it's a great call, Richie, and thank you for the call. Poitras, I think the knock on Poitras was that the Bruins said, well, you can't bring him up and play him in a bottom 6 role. He's got to be in the top 6. Okay, well, now you have Minton. You have Zacha. You have Hagens playing wing. Hagens is still viewed as a long-term center for the team based on people I've talked to. But when you saw Poitras last, he was centering Tanner Jeannot and Mark Kastelik. And I got to tell you, I thought they were good. I thought it was a good line. I thought Jeannot and Kastelik gave Poitras the confidence and the swagger to be more of what Matty Poitras wants to be in the NHL. And so now, I do think that if you have an injury on your fourth line. I do think Poitras can be an option. I don't think he'd be the go-to option. I think he would
Sean
be an
Corrali
option.
insurance, great.
Well, I think if so, let's say there's an injury on the fourth line. Let's say Corrali gets hurt. I think you're more likely to just move Kaslick to center and then put in Asamont in Kaslick's spot on the wing, because Kaslick wants to play center. The Bruins like Kaslick as a winger. Kaslick wants to play center. He's a natural center. He wants to play that position. But I think Poitras worked his way in the conversation. And what is the long-term view of a guy like Matthew Poitras? What is the long-term view of a guy like Mason Lohrei? We need to find out still. We're going to find out in the playoffs. If Lohrei has another good postseason, you're kind of like, oh, damn, okay, he might drive me crazy in the regular season, but he's scoring in the playoffs, and that's what matters to this team. Anyway, playoff hockey today, 5 p.m., TD Garden, Bruins and Wild. And then tomorrow, Bruins Blue Jackets, Nationwide Arena out in Columbus. 98.5 Sports Hub have you covered the whole way, both on the radio and on the website, 98.5sportshub.com. Read all our stuff. Check us out. We will talk to you next week. Have a great rest of your day.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sport.